So, who are the top 10 running backs going into the 2021 season? Well, I'm going to give you my list, and I look forward to seeing yours in the comment section below. Let's have that beautiful football discourse. But what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy, Barushmo. Just in case you did not know, so go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave that thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Again, this is all my opinion. These are my top 10 running backs going into the NFL season. Throw yours down in the comment section below, and let's have a nice, beautiful football discourse discussion. I don't know if that last part was even a sentence, but let's go ahead and let's go in, and we're going to start with my number 10, which is probably the most divisive one on this list. I got David Montgomery. I know people are already throwing a tantrum. They're like, what? How can you put David Montgomery on there? Listen. He's been great for the Bears. He might not be a home run threat, but he is one of the toughest backs in the league to bring down. In 2020, Montgomery, he was 4th in forced missed tackles, and he was 3rd in yards after contact. Also, you got to take into account that he was one of the most hit behind the line of scrimmage running backs in the league last year. And it don't stop there with Montgomery, man. He was literally good in the passing game. He was 4th in both forced missed tackles and receiving yards among running backs. The dude is just good. You just got to come to terms with it at this point. Now, number 9 might also be a bit divisive, but who cares? This is my list, my opinions. Austin Ekeler of the LA Chargers. Now, if Ekeler saw the same amount of targets as a CMC, he would be talked about as the best receiving back in all of the NFL, man, because he has a higher forced missed tackle rate. He had higher yards per reception, and he was used in a way more variety of different ways, being wide in the slot and such than Christian McCaffrey was in 2019. Just saying, man. Austin Ekeler, man, he's your ideal. He is like the personification of a receiving back. He did miss 6 games last season, but he was still 6th in forced missed tackles on receptions. He's probably the worst pure running back or pure runner in my top 10 because this guy, he loves to work in space, and when he gets, he doesn't nearly handle contact well around the line of scrimmage, so I mean, that's the beautiful thing about an outside zone blocking scheme. You put your guys out in space and let them make moves. Austin Ekeler, you are 9, and it's apparently Staley. He says he's going to be a big part of this offense. Him and Lombardi said that, so watch out. Saquon Barkley here at number 8. He's probably one of the most physically and athletically gifted, talented running backs in all of the league. His production should be so much greater, and he's a prime example of why you should address the running back, or you should address the offensive line before you address the running back. You listening to me, Steelers? You listening? Shots fired. But he literally is the prime example of that, because really his production's kind of been hindered because, the 5 guys blocking in front of him are barely average, if not below. Now, throughout his career, his point of contact has been around the line of scrimmage, which is among the worst over the last 3 seasons. But despite that, he's averaged over 1,000 yards rushing. He's averaged over 550 yards receiving through the first 2 seasons. Obviously, we know he got hurt real early. I thought it was unfair to take that into account. But coming back next year, hoping that offensive line plays a bit better. They made a few adjustments here and there, kind of, sort of, but hopefully they play better, and Barkley could truly have a monumental season. At number 7, Aaron Jones, man. I'm a big Aaron Jones fan, and last year was actually a bit of a down year in terms of production compared to his 2019 season, because he was just crazy his 2019 season. In 2019, he had 23 total touchdowns, and that dropped to 12 total touchdowns in 2020, mainly because, there was a bit of congestion in the backfield there with A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams. But also Aaron Rodgers was spreading the love. That's just what Ron does, man. He just spreads the love. But he is a forced tackle or forced missed tackle machine. He was 11th among ball carriers in forced missed tackles. And then he was 6th among pass catchers. Now, I know A.J. Dillon, they invested a second round pick in him, but there is no way that he should eat into Aaron Jones's workload. The guy has proven over the last 4 years that, well, he deserves to get the rock. Will the Packers do that? I guess we'll see. Maybe. I doubt it. At number 6, I got Josh Jacobs from the Las Vegas Sin City, baby, Raiders. Jacobs, he was literally right behind Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry in forced missed tackles over the last 2 seasons. 2020 was a bit more difficult as Jacobs struggled to really find space. Well, because the offensive line was real banged up, and it doesn't look like it's going to get better this year. They have a lot of inexperience and a lot of just youngsters on that offensive line. I just can't see things getting easier for him. He'd be way higher on this list if I felt more optimistic about the offensive line. And on top of that, if John Gruden would ever utilize him more in the passing game. Like, this guy, he ran out of the slot at times in Alabama. He's got some real receiving chops. Let him fly, Gruden. Let him fly. But Josh Jacobs is great, man. Very talented. On to the top 5, and you probably already know who they are, but what order do I have them in? Well, number 5, I got Nick Chubb. Chubb is probably the best pure runner in the league. Despite missing 4 games last season, he was still 3rd in forced missed tackles, and he was actually 2nd in 2019. Even with Kareem Hunt back there eating into his workload, the man's still producing. If not for his lack of usage in the passing game, he'd probably be higher on my list. That's really the only nail in his coffin when it comes to putting him on this list. The other guys in front of him are just a little better at that. Speaking of which, number 4, Alvin Kamara out of New Orleans. Who dat? That'd be the Saints. Now, Kamara, he might be the best all-around running back in the league. Through his first four seasons, he's averaged 991 carries and 90 receptions per season. That's a lot of touches. Fantasy football nuts. You like that. That's opportunity. That's volume. That's points. But he has literally been a mainstay in the end zone. He combined for 22 touchdowns last season. He's just a forced missed tackle machine in his own right. The problem really last season was he not really became one-dimensional, but they really limited what he can do as a receiver. He really had just a bunch of dump-offs and screens. And part of that was because Drew Brees was at the end of the road, unfortunately. His arm strength left a year earlier. But yeah, man, they weren't really, I think, able to utilize Alvin Kamara a lot in the passing game, or at least effectively enough that they were in the past. Plus, it doesn't help that the Saints really don't have a lot of playmakers. I know a lot of Saints fans don't like to hear that, but yeah, who's your Michael Thomas? Okay, who else? I'll wait. That's what I thought. So when everyone knows that you are the focal point to this offense, both running the ball and catching it, it becomes a bit harder. But despite that, Kamara, he still produces. At number 3, I got Christian McCaffrey, CMC himself. He is one of the best receiving backs in the league. We already talked about Austin Ekeler, so I'm not going to get into Ekeler, but he really is. Last season, he only ended up playing 3 games because of injury. But by no means is he just a receiving back, though he's very good as a pass catcher. I mean, his forced missed tackle rate and his average yards after contact are just better as a receiver than they are when, he's a ball carrier. Still, he was 6th in forced missed tackles in 2019, and coming back in 2021, being healthy, we should expect another big season from CMC. So you probably already know the top 2 at this point. You just wondering the order. Well, number 2, I got Dalvin Cook, the Minnesota Vikings head back and focal point of the offense. Though Justin Jefferson might have something to say about that. Honestly, Cook is the closest running back in terms of production than who the number 1 is, which you probably already know by this point. Him and the presumed number 1 are the only running backs that cracked over 1,000 yards after contact last season. And the dude had 68 forced missed tackles. That was literally second in the league to who I have ranked number 1 last season. He also added 10 more forced missed tackles in the receiving game. The guy's just phenomenal. When healthy, he is easily the second best running back in the league and should always be included in the top 3 in my opinion. And then at number 1, no surprise, Derrick Henry. He is literally, when I talk about running backs shouldn't be drafted in the first round, he is always the exception people bring up, and that's the thing. He's the exception. That should be literally his nickname, the exception. I mean, myth, legend, then the exception. But he had the most forced tackles in 2020. He had the most yards after contact last season. And we talked about him and Cook. They both were the only running backs that broke over 1,000 yards after contact. Well, Derrick Henry beat Cook by over 450 yards in yards after contact. He's kind of ridiculous. He led the league in rushing yards, touchdowns. He's basically a linebacker playing running back. And literally he hits people with that type of ferocity. I mean, literally feels like a linebacker out there just smashing the hit stick. Once this man gets a handoff, watch out. You're not bringing him down on your first try. Even with Arthur Smith now in Atlanta, the focal point of the Titans offense will be Derrick Henry, and he will probably be, if not in the top 3 of all major rushing categories, he'll probably be first. Let's be honest. But that's my list. And that's it for the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I always look forward to hearing from you. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.